Generative AI has this sort of unfortunate quality where it's very fast to get something 80 or 90% good. But if in the enterprise, the bar for adoption is at 99%, it becomes actually a very big technical challenge. Investors have been doing this for years and they've left behind a record of how they do it. So a core part of Sibli technology is capturing the information to help scale them into the future. Building an AI company in this day and age is sort of like trying to build a skyscraper on top of a swamp in a lot of ways. It puts more pressure on small businesses to iterate more quickly and to be thoughtful. Applications to one's own business are usually not so straightforward.
Today we are diving into the transformative power of generative AI in investment management and how it's revolutionizing decision making. Hello everyone, this is Kripa Anand and welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast, where we explore the cutting-edge innovations and strategic insights shaping the future of finance and investment. Today we are diving into the transformative power of generative AI in investment management and how it's revolutionizing decision-making for institutional investors. In today's dynamic financial landscape, optimizing investment processes, codifying investment philosophies, and scaling research teams are paramount. Our guest today is at the forefront of leveraging AI to build intelligent, autonomous infrastructure for asset management. Joining us today is Alik Sokolov, co-founder and CEO at Sibli. Alik brings a unique background combining AI consulting, leadership of machine learning product teams, and experience as a venture capital investor. He's also a leading researcher and educator in the machine learning field at the University of Toronto, with published papers at the intersection of quantitative finance, AI, and responsible investing. And Sibli is a technology company at the cutting edge of generative AI in investment management. So before further ado, let's welcome this special guest. Alik, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Now, Alik, let's start the conversation by understanding how has generative AI changed investment management to begin with, and why do you think that institutional investors are still slow to adopt to it, despite its advanced potential?
So there's a couple challenges when it comes to adoption. So first of all, enterprise is a very high bar in terms of quality, in terms of integration to the process of investors. So recently, for example, the Wall Street Journal published an article saying 95% of enterprise generative AI initiatives fail. Working with enterprise on AI and seeing, frankly, some failed initiatives from the outside in, it's pretty clear that a big part of the barrier is simply accuracy. Generative AI has this sort of unfortunate quality where it's very fast to get something 80 or 90% good, but if in the enterprise the bar for adoption for a particular pilot is at 99%, however you choose to measure accuracy, all of a sudden it becomes actually a very big technical challenge to get it from that 80 to that 99% mark. And a challenge of focus as well. So, for example, the way we build software with generative AI at Sibli is we largely avoid chatbot interfaces. So, any application layer that we create or the application features for us look like just sort of normal software, even if in the background it's powered by generative AI algorithms. For us, it certainly allows us to do certain things or process certain types of data sources, ask certain questions that would not be possible without AI or would be incredibly laborious from an engineering perspective. But at the same time, we try to keep the use cases very, very focused so that we can make sure that for perhaps the more narrow application that can still have a very large value associated to it, we can meet that performance bar.
Wow, that's a crucial insight, Alec. It highlights the gap between, AI's potential and its real world implementation in this complex world of finance. And understanding the evolution of generative AI and addressing, the adoption challenges are clearly vital for unlocking its full potential in investment management. Great. Now, Sibli focuses on building institutional grade AI systems, combining technology with forward deployment and implementation support. So, how does Sibli help investors codify their strategy and scale research with agentic AI? And what sets your approach apart in, a crowded investment tech space?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right in that on the surface, or well, in objective reality, the space is somewhat crowded, right? The investors consume and generate a lot of research, right? So it's a pretty obvious idea to say generative AI can be used to produce investment research. Again, quality becomes the challenge, and narrowing the focus for, well, what does investment research mean? What kind of research questions? How can workflows of investors be broken down into something that software can do,
Mhm.
um, while also being prescriptive enough so you can, for in building with generative AI, we have these patterns like building with agents or workflows, right? So if you define a workflow, for example, which is a set of narrow tasks,
Right.
how do you set up a narrow enough set of tasks that you can test the individual pieces, but yet have the output be general enough or useful enough that it can make a dent in the overall workflows? Um, Specifically at Sibli, we are big believers in starting where investors are. So for large institutional investors, they produce a lot of data as part of the day-to-day process. They
Mhm.
produce
Right.
research, and they produce usually models, right? So the job of an investor, be it public equities or private equity, um, typically involves modeling to make some kind of complicated prediction about the future, right? And these are the kinds of predictions where historically machine learning didn't really make a dent because you're trying to model something that hasn't happened in the past,
Right.
which is not generally not a good use case for machine learning, right? So how to predict, hey, how many iPhones Apple going to sell in the next 5 years, for
It's
example. That's
imaginative. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a key driver of the performance for the company. But you're trying to reason about something that hasn't happened. Imagine if it's a good word to use. And but the cool thing for us is that investors have been doing this for years and they've left behind a record of how they do it. So a core part of Sibly technology is capturing their information in their models, capturing how they thought processes around the research process were
Mhm.
to help scale them into the future. So if it comes to generating research, making research that's contextualized in their models and their views of the world. We really use that as a starting point and then branch out to that for all other research or data connections, which makes our approach, I think, quite unique. And also, this is why we have set up, for example, a forward deployed engineer team. So we can deploy usually in the environment of our clients because we're working with data that's highly sensitive, integrate that information into a platform, and then branch out to more and more use cases from there.
Wow, that sounds like a very sophisticated and differentiated approach, definitely. Tackling complex financial problems with advanced AI while, emphasizing the real world implementation because that's the most important part of it. Hello, Canadian business leaders and investors. Are you looking to optimize your investment process with cutting edge AI? Learn from Alik Sokolov, CEO of Sibli, about building institutional grade AI systems, the future of portfolio management, and how to create defensible vertical AI businesses. Now, let's continue our conversation with Alec. Now, your background is truly unique, right? Combining deep academic research with hands on experience in AI and finance. So, how exactly has your academic and practical experience shaped Sibley's technology to help investors optimize their processes and make better decisions?
Yeah, I definitely see it as two sides of the same coin. Um, you know, when it comes to sort of the professional side of things, both throughout my career, in my years, and machine learning consulting especially, and throughout building Sibley, we've always been trying to push the envelope in terms of what is how do you apply the cutting edge in an industry setting where, like, you're doing all this cool new stuff, but
Yeah.
ultimately are grounded in the ROI, in grounded in doing things that are practical, that actually get deployed into production, that actually drive real business value.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, in academia, of course, being a academia helps you be aware of the cutting edge, whereas being grounded doing work in industry allows you to make that connection of what is an actual practical application. So actually, have found both sides to be very fruitful
Mhm.
and very synergistic, right? My research has certainly been helped by my professional experience.
Right.
It helped me, especially doing research in finance. Finance is an industry where in a lot of ways industry is ahead of research, although not in all ways,
Right.
right? So even just finding ways, okay, well, this is like a kind of grounded practical machine learning application
Mhm.
that maybe isn't actually so novel in other industries, but oftentimes is in finance. But then applying something in finance in investment research requires a very special lens, because the space, like this, Apple problem that I mentioned to you, um, the some problems that seem like really easy applications of machine learning might not be, because it's a complicated problem and everyone's competing
Right.
against each
Yeah.
other. So you sort of need to bring in that business context and the context on the industry in order to really apply all this cool shiny stuff in a way that's practical.
Yes, and that's a fantastic synergy, Alec. It demonstrates how, rigorous academic inquiry can directly inform and drive real world technological innovation. The integration of cutting edge research with practical application is clearly also a core strength in Sibli's approach to AI development. All right, it's time for a quick break right here, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more insights from Alec on building defensible AI business and finance.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah. Well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back, listeners. Let's dive straight into how Alec and Sibli are building defensible vertical AI companies and shaping the future of investment management. Now, let's discuss the strategies for building defensible vertical AI businesses in specialized markets. Because Sibli operates in specialized vertical investment management, right? And
Mhm.
you're focused on building a defensible business. So, how exactly, like, what does it take to build a defensible vertical AI company in finance? Please go ahead and educate all of our listeners because they'll be very interested in knowing this. And are there any key strategies that ensure long term success and, market leadership in this very niche space?
So I a colleague actually recently put it in a very succinct way. Building an AI company in this day and age is sort of like trying to build a skyscraper on top of a swamp in a lot of ways,
Hmm.
in the sense that the space does move very, very quickly. And I think for a lot of folks, it's important to pick like if you invest in engineering resources, it's important to pick technical challenges that will have the defensibility in a purely technical sense, right? Like not investing a ton of time into something that the next iteration of AI models or the next iteration of the agentic implementations from the hyperscalers is likely to do really well on its own.
Hmm.
um, so part of it is being thoughtful around where not to compete. And this is a pretty unusual kind of way of thinking in the traditional sense for AI people, I think, because for the most part, there used to be, I think, a lot more value for solving certain problems in house than there is today. There are still absolutely, though, technical challenges, specific workflows where one needs very rigorous engineering
Hmm.
that kind of combines these Venn diagram intersections of understanding your business really well, your vertical really well, having to build very technically challenging models or features, using combinations of existing large language models being called through an API, having to fine tune your own models and train your own neural networks. Um, in order to solve very specific kind of some problems that emerge when you solve for these workflows, right? So for us at Sibli, for example, as we do work with financial models, divides a lot of very specific workflows and technical challenges that we think will be quite defensible
Right.
even as AI improves overall. But those the, those intersections are becoming more narrow. So I think one building in the space has to be a lot more thoughtful about finding them. And then you get the more traditional kinds of differentiation. So getting proprietary data,
Mhm.
building out application layers and tackling specific workflows as much as AI is starting to become an accelerator for writing software.
Mhm.
There's still a lot of defensibility in just having a enterprise application that just does a lot of stuff and solves for a
Right.
lot of workflows that each one of your clients doesn't want to rebuild, and maybe for the hyperscalers is not a general enough problem to go out and solve.
But still, that's a very strategic perspective, Alec. Going beyond just innovation to, consider long-term market position and sustainability. And yes, building defensible vertical AI businesses is clearly essential for securing long-term success and market leadership in specialized sectors. So again, thank you for educating us. Now, Sibli helps institutional investors optimize their investment process, right? Which relies on acquiring the right clients and the right partners. How exactly does Sibli find that right partner in investment management? And then go ahead and share what's your long term vision for reinventing portfolio management with intelligent agents and global execution.
Yeah. So when it comes to finding clients, so we work with a mix of really larger enterprise asset manager and some asset managers that by global standards would be more mid-market and probably skew more towards large institutional investors. So um, because we work quite closely with our partners, oftentimes our sales process is account-led sales, right? So it's actually going out and meeting folks and creating those relationships with people that will ultimately work with, which usually is people on the investment side. Sometimes it's people on the innovation or the technology side,
Mhm.
making sure that they're aware of our technology, how it's different, how it can help them, but also just building that rapport with, because ultimately, people still work with people, and if you're buying
Right.
AI technology or AI agents. Um, when it comes to redefining how the space works, so ultimately one of our key goals is helping institutions harness what they're already really really good at,
Mhm.
right? So a large institutional investor has over the years spent millions hiring people, paying them salaries and bonuses, equipping them with the best data and tools in order to do their jobs really really well. And in a lot of you can philosophically think about those jobs boiling down to forecasting. They're trying to predict the future, right? And making those predictions
In a
over
way,
time
yeah.
using as their specialized view, beliefs about the world, their specific skills, etc. So to the extent that we can help harness what already made them great, and scale it and multiply it using AI in our approach, this is how we make our clients successful, make ourselves successful too. In the future, what we believe is that AI and our tools in particular can be tools for better capital allocation in general. So potentially outside of investment management. So a
Mhm.
sort of pet problem that we've been thinking about is, should you should a large enterprise pay, the X consultant Y
Mhm.
dollars to implement some CRM platform in a particular department, for example, because that in and of itself is also a forecasting question.
Mhm.
Usually, these types of questions aren't answered so rigorously, where it's like, oh, okay, let's like really think about the world and try to make a model of the future that predicts the free cash flows from going down this path, making this decision, or
Right.
no. Um, but you can think of these problems in the same way. So actually, the insight that we get from the investment vertical, um, not through a P or anything like that. Our clients' data stays very much secure in their environment, but from a general product perspective, we see a lot of applications outside of the buy side, outside of the investment domain, and those are really exciting.
Wow, amazing. So, say if I were to give you a time machine right now and say you were to travel 5 years into the future, when you get off that time machine, how do you envision the scenario changing?
Of where we'll want to go 5 years from now, just how the world will be.
How the world will be, especially in investment management?
It's an interesting thing. I'll give you it's sort of a non-answer, but hopefully one that's informative. There's this really interesting research from some years ago around expert predictions. where basically the researchers went through a whole bunch of kind of predictions made in the past by, folks you could deem experts in their particular field. And turns out that for any long-term enough prediction, experts are kind of useless. Like it's just, you might just as well roll the dice. And sort of it makes sense given how people learn, right? Like we're all right in making predictions for things where, okay, something has kind of happened in the past and we can extrapolate from that. But for something that really just hasn't occurred, we're trying to predict forward the path of a technology change. Turns out in general, we're quite shoddy. So I won't pretend to really know. I'll actually say that maybe the most educated opinion we can have on this matter, we don't really know. Because both things could be true. Like when it comes to, you could pause any evolution in AI from today, and there's still a lot to do for companies like Sibli to do really, really amazing things, right? Like we don't really need like the underlying tech to make any more quantum leaps in order to, like for example, really solve or make a huge dent in the capital allocation problem more generally. But as far as how much the underlying landscape will shift, right? Like how much AI will evolve, both could be true. We might have a runaway AI scenario where like just for, you put a human in any cognitive competition with AI and we get blown out of the water. That could happen in 5 years. Or we could level off where we are today, and we get a big AI bubble explosion, and the
Wow.
expectations
Yeah.
don't don't come to fruition, right? Like we're kind of in an environment where either way can be true. When it comes to building a small business and kind of environment, I think about what can we do that's sort of hedged both ways, right?
Right.
Like, okay, runaway scenario, it's like, hey, you gotta move really fast. It's probably one of the big things,
Yeah.
right? And then in terms of like, well, if the expectations are overblown, it's really being focused on ourselves and making sure that our features, what we implement, the work we do with our clients is very clear business value, is very clear ROI.
I love how your answer was so balanced, so wholesome. So, Alec, it has been such a pleasure having you on this podcast. Before we let you go, if there's one piece of key message that you have for our listeners today, specifically for all the Canadian SMEs about using AI to gain financial clarity and drive growth, what would it be and why?
I, I think so. We ourselves have been putting a lot of thought into our own internal use of AI, right? Like, so internally we are an engineering company, right? We're a product company, right? So we develop AI based products. We need very, very strong engineering talent, very, very strong AI people. And of course, our own use of AI internally is also paramount for us, right? Like we're a small
Right.
business, so we need to be as efficient with our time as possible. And I would say, like, because of the state that AI is in today, it actually takes a lot of creativity to figure out what are the spots in your business where it can really be a step change. Where are the spots in your business where it can become a risk, right? So, for example, when it comes to coding, right, like vibe coding
Yeah.
has been a really big term, right? A lot of people are getting really excited because you can take someone who's not, a trained engineer and seemingly produce an entire product overnight.
Yes.
But the reality is that the people who actually stand to benefit the most from these AI coding tools are people who are engineers that are very, very strong. And AI coding tools in their current iteration need a lot of oversight. And it's interesting, like, we have engineers that are, let's say, starting to look at features that are more full stack, so like front end, back end operations. And AI can kind of help you do everything at the same time, but then if you can't provide oversight on every single type of the thing that you're getting AI to do, you might get quality that's very spotty, right? And so that means the entire engineering process kind of has to change and how one works with these tools that can be an accelerator. One just has to be very thoughtful around that. And I expect that the same to be true in a lot of different spots, right? Like use AI blindly, you can compromise quality. Don't use AI, you can certainly leave efficiency on the table. So it puts more pressure on small businesses to iterate more quickly and to be thoughtful.
Right.
Applications to one's own business are usually not so straightforward. It requires a little bit more craftiness, a little bit more thinking about what the best process is in
Right.
this new type of world.
Wow, that's a very, informed, well educated, and a powerful and actionable message that I'm sure our listeners would love. Alex, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that was an insightful conversation with Alik Sokolov, co founder and CEO at Sibli, on the evolution of generative AI in investment management, how Sibli builds institutional grade AI systems, the intersection of research and practice, and building defensible vertical AI businesses, and Sibli's vision for the future of investment optimization. To all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. We really appreciate your continued support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert insights and resources that can help your business thrive. Also, don't forget to visit our website, CanadianSME.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our podcast partners, RBC, UPS, A1 Global College, ADP, and Google for their ongoing commitments to empowering SMEs in Canada. So, until next time, keep innovating and striving for success, and we'll see you in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.